All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews right here on YouTube. It has been 43 years since the world tragically lost Randy Rhoads, and people are still clamoring for information and wanting to know so much about how he became the incredible musician and ultimately legend that he is. But as we get older, there's people who were never alive during the time of Randy Rhoads, and they just are learning from the little bit of video. And there's a lot of video, but clips and pictures. And I thought there's no better people to tell the story. Well, then his sister Kathy Rhoads, who joins us today and is really working to keep his memory alive, and has an incredible Instagram page that shares pictures honoring her brother, and also another person who knew Randy very well, his friend and bandmate Rudy Sarzo. They join us today to remember the great Randy Rhoads. We'll talk about all that and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there to waste time with you. Right, it is an honor. Let's welcome Kathy Rhoads D'Argenzio. You've been married, Kathy, for, am I wrong, almost 50 years?
I've been together with Richard since 1952, 1972. Married in 77, so together 53 years.
How
Married.
Incredible. Yeah, that's a feat in this day and age, for sure. And also, I want to welcome my old friend Rudy Sarzo to the chat as well. Hi, Rudy. How are you?
I am blessed. Great to see you both.
Yeah, awesome to do this with Rudy.
So, as I said, there's always people who want to know more about Randy, know more about his contributions to music and the person that he was. So before we get into sort of the preserving of his legacy and what happens next with it, because when a celebrity passes away, there becomes a business and an interest, and as Graceland and Paisley Park and these things, people want to know, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that this many years later, people they love Randy Rhoads. People are so passionate. I talk to guitar players on this show, every day, and their memories of Randy Rhoads or their desire to know more is there. So, Kathy, let's start with you. You have three siblings. Your mother, Dolores, she raised the family. She was a single mom for the most part, most of your lives.
Yes.
Your brother Kelly is the oldest.
Right.
You are the middle by 1 year, right?
From Kelly 4 years, from Randy 1 year apart.
Randy 1 year, yeah. So you would be the middle child, and then Randy would have been the youngest. First, before we get too ahead, I want to ask how your brother is doing, because I know he's had some health issues, and so I want to start with that.
Yeah, he had a stroke actually 1 year ago in April, and it was a really bad stroke. So he's home recovering. He was in a facility, and he just was not happy there. He wanted to come home. And so he's home. He won't get the therapy as steadily and strongly as he would had he remained there. But this is where he wants to be, at home with his wife, Veronica. And he's happy. So, yeah. Really sad.
He's been so hands-on. The two of you have been so hands-on in Randy's legacy. And, he was at the school, Musonia school, constantly teaching, recording new music, doing things. You guys are offering these tributes to Randy. And I don't know if it feels like a little added pressure on you now, because he's going to be out of that for a minute, and it's up to you. Do you feel pressure to sort of honor your brother?
I feel honored to do it, but there is pressure with it. And my mom used to do it. She was the boss lady. It was her way, how she wanted to do it. She passed, and then I really wanted to do it with Kelly together. That was important to me. Now that he can no longer do it, I do feel pressure, but it's something I take the challenge on, and I definitely want to accomplish something phenomenal, the best I can before I leave this planet. So
he said that you were more comfortable with it. He said at times it was hard being Randy Rhoads' brother. I think also
Yeah.
him being a musician. You're not going to be taken as a musician. You're going to be taken as a musician who is Randy Rhoads' brother. And he said that you did a better job maybe of that spotlight.
He, it was hard for him to always kind of follow in his little brother's footstep. He was a musician as well. And, he just kind of he just kept trying to make it happen. And it just didn't for him, sadly. And so even though he was a good musician in his own right, he was an incredible drummer when we grew up. Randy and I were just in awe of his drumming skills. And we always said, oh, keep doing that, keep doing that. He wanted to be the front singer, but later on in his later life, he became a classical pianist. And he was very good at that. So in his own right and his own space, he was unique on his own. But overshadowed by this Randy Rhoads' larger than life brother. So,
well, we're going back to growing up, but you were a guitar player too. Obviously, a musical home. Your mother kept instruments throughout the house. She played music. There was people coming in and out for lessons, but you were a guitar player.
Randy and I actually started guitar lessons at Musonia. Musonia School started in 1948 with my mom and my dad. At that time, they were married at that time, and a partner, Jack Coleman. And so we were raised in that school. We took lessons. It was like a second home for us, literally. And it wasn't what lesson do you want to take lessons. It was what instrument do you want to take? It wasn't even a question. You just had to do something. Mm-hmm. So, and my mom was a musician in her own right too. She grew up, the cornetist, and she studied under Herbert L. Clark, who was John Philip Sousa's first cornet player. So there was quite the history, and the memories of going to Musonia. It's just like I could just picture going back in time, walking through that front door, and coming from all angles of the school, hearing music penetrating from every single room. It was piano, trumpet, trombone, bass, violin, clarinet, saxophone, you name it, cello. I mean, every instrument you could imagine, you just walk through that door and you could hear it just permeating. And whenever I walk through that door still, it just takes me back to that time. But we all took lessons there. We started together, Randy and I, to get back to your question. He was about 6, 7, and I was a year older than that. And we started on acoustic. Randy started on acoustic with me. There were 3 teachers Randy had there: Bonnie, Arlene, and Scott later, who was the electric guitar teacher. He didn't start on electric guitar or classical guitar. It was acoustic. And so he quickly got into the electric guitar a few years down the road. But we went every week, and after our lessons, there would be like a band playing, and later on, our friends would come and jam, and we'd hang out, and it was just great memories, really amazing times. I can't tell you how many hours Randy sat and hung out in that front room together with nothing to do because there was no social media, cell phones, anything. We'd sit there and play hangman's bluff or keep ourselves occupied with whatever we could think of, just doing the hanging together and spending time.
It's amazing. And that room you speak of is preserved. We'll talk about that and the future of that more. But at what age do people start to realize that Randy might have something that maybe other kids learning don't?
I would say when he started playing in junior high, kind of he got up and got together with Kelly Garney and kind of started forming his own bands and playing, with his brother and the friends at Musonia. They started fooling around with it. The way I would put it is Randy was very special early on, but he's the only guitar player I was exposed to. So I thought that's how most people play. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know any different. But as the years went on and he started to play and join, his group, which is his passion, Quiet Riot with Rudy is, now taking on the torch with that. He just seemed to captivate people, the audience. They gravitate kind of to him when he was playing, performing. But I would say at around 15, my mom said something to him that greatly impacted Randy. If you want to hear that story, I can tell it.
Yes.
I was in the kitchen with my mom and Randy, and just for history's sake, Randy adored my mom. They were very, very close, and he listened to anything musically suggested loyally. He absolutely adored her. And we were sitting in the kitchen, and he was sitting at the counter, the famous Rhoads counter that is at our house. And I was standing there, and she looked at him and she said to him, Randy, you have a God-given talent. And it was silence. And I just looked at Randy because I was like, oh my God, what is he going to say or do? And there were actually tears just streaming down his face. And for my mom to validate that to him meant everything to him. And I think from then on, it was just like the sky's the limit for him. He was driven. He was never like, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to learn more. He just was like a sponge of music knowledge and determination and perfectionism. I would give him that term.
Well, and his guitar teacher at the time said to your mother, "There's nothing else I can teach him."
That was electric guitar. Yes, he did say that. And my mom thought he was joking and said, "Oh, come on, Scott." He said, "No, I'm serious." So, and that's kind of when he stopped lessons and went on and started doing his own thing and with Quiet Riot and trying to make that work. And Rudy can fill you in with some of those details with Quiet Riot in those years.
Well, we know that with Quiet Riot, there's 2 albums that were only available as import, Japanese only. Kelly Garney was a schoolmate of Randy's to begin with, and they were in the first lineup of Quiet Riot with drummer Drew Forsythe, and on the second record, before that record comes out, and I'll tag Rudy in at this point, but Kelly Garney had some disagreements with Kevin DuBrow. In fact, he was planning to kill Kevin DuBrow. He's been on this show. He's talked about it, and him and Randy got into a bit of a fight. Rudy, you know the story better than I do because you would come in ultimately and replace Kelly, right?
Yes, I came in after the story, but Kathy was there. So she's the one who actually witnessed the story.
I didn't witness the fight, but I know from Randy telling me what happened. So pretty much there was a night prior that Kelly was at a nightclub. It caught fire. Kelly remained there. The story's been told. I'm not making this up. We're telling for the first time. He stole some alcohol. And Kelly and Kevin had some disagreements. So Randy, being loyal, wanted to try to keep Kelly in the band, but Kevin kind of wanted to kick him out because Kelly, it's well known at that time, was drinking very heavily, and he kind of had enough with it. So they wanted to kick him out. Randy said, "No, I'm going to go one more time to try to make this work." And he went. Kelly had been drinking for quite a few hours heavily. And Randy went with his best friend at the time, Kim McNair, and tried to plead with Kelly, and get him to stop drinking and get serious about Quiet Riot. Altercation ensued. Kelly told him to leave. Randy didn't want to leave, and they blew up and fought and scrambled on the floor. Randy broke a thumbnail, which is another interesting story. Kelly later saved that thumbnail and had it put in the back of the guitar and sold that guitar, picking it up off the floor. But it really hurt Randy deeply because Randy had been good friends with Kelly for many years. And it was a very sore subject for Randy for many, many years, very hurt by it. And it kind of altered their friendship. I know there's a different spin on this, but I know how hurt he was, and so does my mom.
Randy taught Kelly how to play the bass.
Absolutely. Randy had this thing about starting this group, and he met his buddy, and they were good friends. They were definitely, Kelly's a huge part of Randy's in 7th grade. There's no denying that. And so Randy needed a bass player, so he taught Kelly how to play bass. And it started in our garage, Quiet Riot, basically.
Yeah, I will put some pictures in here because we're talking about some of those rehearsals. But I want to, Rudy, before you jump in, I wanted to show this one picture. Tell me about this one. Can you see it, Kathy?
Yeah, that's what I was explaining, how that's at Musonia, and that's after our lessons. And I just captured Kelly and Randy. You know, I was there. Their other friends were there. But since Kelly can't be here, I'm trying to include him in my interview here in spirit. So that's what we did. And that's Kelly on the drums, which I had wished he'd stayed, and Randy jamming. I think that's his, does he have on his, I can't see it. The symbol's covering it. It's probably his Ovation at the time that he had, or it could be the Harmony Rocket, which I doubt, though. That was his first guitar. Anyway, and that's what we did. That was our life growing up, music.
I wanted to make sure that we shared that photo, and we'll add plenty more. This you have a wealth of memories and pictures. So Kelly's out. I mean, there's no way that relationship is going to continue in that band, and especially now he's trying to kill Kevin. Rudy, how do you first find out about Quiet Riot for you?
About Quiet Riot? Well, actually, I saw the band the year before. That's how Kevin and I met. After I was super impressed by the band, and after they finished the show, I told Kevin, because he was walking around the Starwood, you know, which is like roaming around, and I introduced myself and I told him, listen, I've been traveling all over the country playing top 40, and I've seen everything that's out there, and you guys are really way ahead of anything that I've seen. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you guys are gonna make it. And we just we shook hands and I walked away. Uh, that was my first impression of Quiet Riot. It was a band that was putting on a headliner arena presentation in a club. So they really understood. They had a vision already, even before I joined the band. Uh, but going back to the early days when I first joined the band, of course, information gets dropped, because I really didn't know. I was more interested in fitting into the group than trying to get some gossip out of what happened. Because whatever happened, happened. But along the way, to be honest with you, a fist fight or a fight, to me, it's not enough to actually, part with somebody that you're so close with, especially somebody who was drunk, at the time. Okay. But what I heard was a little bit different. So maybe Kathy can clarify this for me. What I heard was there was a gun incident.
That's right. Good point, Rudy. The gun was, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I need you, since you were there. I mean, not at the side of it, but you were in the circle of hearing things of what actually happened before I came into the picture. Yeah. So I'm relying on you to actually tell me and tell everybody else what actually happened.
I never heard the part that Kelly wanted to kill Kevin. If he did, I didn't know that. But the gun was shot over Randy's head. It wasn't shot ever at Kevin. So that was, I guess, Kelly always says that he never purposely meant to kill him, but it really impacted Randy, is the point. That the betrayal of his buddy, even considering doing something. And remember, this isn't somebody drunk off their mind. I mean, there could have been a severe accident, unintentionally, right?
Yeah, that to me makes sense as why to part with somebody, because then it becomes a dangerous
Yeah,
situation to have somebody like that in the
A
band.
very good
Uh,
point, Rudy.
yeah,
It's much more than a fist fight. And Kelly told the story on the show. I think the bullet was in the ceiling. I mean, it was and he admitted that he said, "I'm going to go and I'm going to kill Kevin." He knew, he admits it, and that's what
yeah,
he said. And Randy, he probably thought this was crazy, and obviously there's drinking involved. But then to fire a firearm in the middle of this, whether he was showing off or missed, or doesn't matter. It's obviously a major strain on a relationship, and it sounds like Kelly's
yeah,
drinking was going to make it impossible for him to continue.
yeah. And I'm not here to, say bad things about anybody. It's just sad history, unfortunately. But it did hurt Randy greatly, and there's no denying that. So
yeah.
that's
You know what? Also, I like to clarify how I joined the band.
Right.
There were just about every bass player in town auditioned for Quiet Riot. I happened to be out of town in New Jersey still when the auditions began. And then a few people told Kevin that, the person that you're looking for is this guy named Rudy. And they somehow gave him my number. So Kevin called me up in New Jersey. I was 2 days away from traveling back to Los Angeles. I had already had my plane ticket. So he asked me to come over and audition and say, yeah, that's great because I'm going to be in town in a couple of days. So I'll call you as soon as I get there. So as soon as I landed, I call up Kevin and say, okay, I'm here. We set up the audition. I auditioned, and the rest is, the rest is what happened. I joined the band.
Yeah, and we're in and out of Quiet Riot for a lot of years to come. Rudy's been on the show, so we'll put a link so you can hear Rudy's story about Quiet Riot.
Actually, the only time that I ever left Quiet Riot was 1985,
Mhm.
and there was personality conflict. I remember I left the time at the band 1985. We had just finished a major headlining tour, so I was leaving a pretty big band for the Complete Unknown. But then again, I joined Quiet Riot when Quiet Riot was still the Complete Unknown. I left Ozzy, right? The first time the band broke up because Randy went on to join Ozzy. I didn't leave the band. There was no band to leave. The second time, Mental Health, we had just finished the Condition Critical tour. And actually, I just noticed that I was going to leave the band before we started that tour. So I fulfilled my commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Then we broke away. I did not sue the band. I did not take anything from the band. I just took my gear that I brought with me and walked away. And that was it. Clean split. No
Yeah.
suing, no trying to, mess with anybody. Nope, I'm out of here. Thank you.
really.
Then I joined the band in 1997 for the reunion of the Mental Health version of the band, and the band imploded at the gates of an airport while we were waiting for Kevin for the seventh time that he left us without showing up. And Frankie, who was, basically managing the band, taking care of business, looked at Carlos and me and said, "We can't go on like this. We can't afford to play. We are totally at a loss because every time that he did not show up, we would get sued by promoters.
Yeah,
We would lose money because plane tickets, and we have to pay whoever is going to be the tech, the roadie at the time. So it got to the point that we could not afford to play. So that was the last time, 2003. So I rejoined in '97. We were all the four Mental Health guys. In 2003, the band dissolved. So I did not leave the band. The band just kind of like imploded
The
right
band
there.
left
So
itself.
yeah, yeah. So I only left once.
I wanted to ask about Kevin and Randy's relationship a little bit because I haven't heard about it so much. Kevin was a personality, and definitely his mouth got him in some trouble. And not everyone has the greatest memories, but he's no longer here, so it's we let it go. But did Randy have a hard time relating to Kevin? Was it difficult for him?
the way I would describe Kevin, because I remember the first time Kevin never came up to the house, and I would say when Kevin walked in a room, you knew he was there. So he spent time at our house. I saw him there quite a bit, and I think Randy liked Kevin. I've never heard him say anything bad. That's why he kept trying to. I think the problem was Kelly and Kevin not getting along, and Randy just wanted this band to work, and he tried so hard, and it was so frustrating for him. Which is when he did leave to go with Ozzy, my mom is the one who finally pushed him to go because he didn't want to go for that audition. And she said, you know, Randy, the reason you guys never made it, and here he is, listen to my mom again, the music just wasn't that good. Ouch. That kind of hurt. But she just said, you need to move on. You beat this. It's not going. You don't have a record deal here in America. You just need to explore your options. You can always come back, do your own thing, but it's a foot in the door and it's exposure for you. And he's like, he didn't want to stop teaching at Musonia. He loved teaching, which is another subject about Randy I'd like to talk about. His teaching, so integral about Randy and his, his passion, and what a great teacher he was. But he went reluctantly. He wasn't a Black Sabbath fan. Ozzy Osbourne, he didn't like, what the heck am I getting myself into? But he went, and obviously the rest is history. But with Kevin, I think they always were okay. I never heard him complain. I think there were egos involved in that band, which was maybe part of the demise of it. But Randy got along with everybody. I think.
Was Randy a laid back kind of guy? It's the impression I got that he. But you guys know him, so you tell me.
Well, I would say there's kind of 3 stages of Randy's life: his childhood. Then there's kind of a teenage, finding himself. That's Randy's kind of crazy years of I would put it, like his, typical teenage testosterone or whatever you call it, teenage gets into trouble. And then when he was later with Ozzy, when he came home, he was a transformed person. He grew, he matured, he was determined, he knew what he wanted, he knew what he didn't want, and he was so dedicated to achieving what he wanted at that stage. He had been done with the touring. He wanted to go back to UCLA, which was where my mother graduated from college, and my father too. He wanted his master's degree in classical music, and that's what he wanted. Step 1. And
that leads to one of these rumors, and Rudy, you can jump in because he was there. A lot of people said he was going to leave Ozzy Osbourne. He was done. But the truth was that he wanted to earn his degree in classical music. Rudy, you were there.
Yeah, but let me go back to the Kevin DuBrow question. Of course, I was not there when Kelly was in the band, so I really don't know how the dynamics between Kevin and Randy were. But I can tell you the dynamics between Kevin and Randy. Kevin was in awe of Randy's talent.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you watch any of the video of us performing during that period, I joined 78, so 78, 79, it's like Kevin is the ringmaster of the MC, and the spotlight always on Randy.
Yep.
which is the way it should always be, right? But what I'm saying is that he understood that the same way that I understood that. I had the blessing and the advantage to actually have played with Randy, not only in Quiet Riot, but also with Ozzy. And like Kathy's mentioning, that's a whole new different level of Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
he completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah. He got the platform he needed to do what he'd had to do when playing with more professional musicians. Bob Daisley, it was a whole different ball game.
And, absolutely. And to watch him every single day every single morning, especially after he got the Guitar Player Magazine Best New Talent Award. He would at breakfast he would get the yellow pages and look for ads for music store to take guitar lessons.
Classical.
I've never, after Randy, I've never been on tour with anybody that's done that on any instrument. So I'm watching him and I'm going, wow. I mean, this he was really inspiring while I was playing with him in Quiet Riot, but this is a whole different level.
That's right. He
You know,
changed. He
he
changed.
changed. His determination, his awareness that people were listening, people were hearing what he was doing. He wasn't just like in the Los Angeles Sunset Strip little capsule as far as the audience. He was playing around the world, Europe, the UK, the United States, North America, Canada. And he was making an impact
Yeah.
every single night. Impact that I can tell you that that's how we grew our audience on the first tour because we were doing a lot of shows that were like within 100 miles from each other because it was basically the same promoter. And then, you could do that. They will be like an hour and a half away from each other. So every night you could recognize, oh, I saw that guy last night this other town. Now he's got friends that he brings over. And he did that show per show. And that's the admiration that Kevin had. Kevin, everything negative that we can say about Kevin, that's not the Kevin with Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
Kevin didn't even drink alcohol, nothing. Back then, as soon as Randy passed away, that's when Kevin changed. He had nobody to impress. That's the dynamic they had. It's like Randy, it was like this superhero, and then all of a sudden, you have Kevin, Robin, Batman and Robin. You have Kevin who was like trying to like, well, look at Kevin would write songs based on Randy uh, telling him, okay, if you want to really impress me, write a good song. And he will come back and write something like really amazing. That's the relationship that I witnessed between Kevin and Frankie. And Kevin just lost that friend, that connection of somebody that you want to impress. He didn't have that anymore. I think he just got lost.
Yeah.
You know, he
It's
lost
interesting.
himself. He
It's,
lost
it's
himself.
interesting to show those different sides of Kevin as well as the different sides of Randy. And in a lot of ways, Kevin is responsible. I mean, I don't know, not solely, but bringing Randy to the world, or at least trying to, show off this talent that was evolving.
Well,
We're
well,
talking about Randy. He passed away so young. He's immortal. But we're talking about him as if he would make decisions that someone who's traveled the whole world would. He was a young person, no matter
you,
what.
I kind of think
you know
Randy
what?
did the show.
Can I add my perception of what you just said? Uh, Kevin was responsible for bringing Randy to that cluster of fan base that we had on the Sunset Strip. Yes, but Ozzy is the one who really brought Randy to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Ozzy and Ozzy giving Randy the complete freedom to write what was
Yeah.
inside of him,
Yeah. Um,
not to be a clone of anybody else, that speaks volume. He trusted Randy. He
yeah.
says, "You can do this.
They
I know you
admired,
have it." Yeah,
Ozzy and Randy had an admiration, even though it was, you got to remember, Randy, when he left to do those albums, what was he, 22, 23, when he recorded those two albums?
yeah.
He's still living at home with my mom. Now he's thrust away from home for the first time, never been out of, pretty much out of the country. And he's thrust with Ozzy Osbourne, who we all know was crazy drinking and, antics. And it was a challenge for Randy, which is why I think he delved into the classical lessons. And he also, when he was on tour, started collecting these little tiny model trains that were teeny tiny. So he tried to divert his attention, plus practicing his classical guitar music constantly. So it wasn't easy for him, but they still had a good relationship. And still, I even have, I almost brought it, a diary that he kept. And he talks about Ozzy and how much he really does like him. He says, Ozzy's a really good guy. I think he really likes me, and he's afraid I'm going to leave.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, he had this fear that he was going to leave, and we were getting into that a little bit. Rudy, it wasn't that he was going to leave; he wanted to take some time to get his classical degree, right?
Yeah, well, the way that I knowing Randy as a creator, he was not wired to be playing the same thing every
that's
single night.
challenging
For
enough.
I mean, when I joined the band, we did the Blizzard of Oz in North America, and then we took a month off and we continued with Diary of a Madman record that was already recorded by the time that Tommy Elders and I joined the band, both Blizzard and Diary. So it was like nonstop touring. And Randy's solo and his compositions, they're so thematic that he could not uh, stay out, he cannot deviate from what's on the record because they're so melodic. They're like a little piece to themselves. So you expected to hear that every single night. Play it. Of course, he would play a little bit different with a different feel, but it's the same notes every single night. And by the time that I joined the band, that was, you would say about a year and a half worth of touring, two tours back to back. So Randy needed to take a break from playing the same thing over and over again.
Can
And
I?
back then, yeah,
Oh, sorry.
and back then we didn't have the technology to actually go in and record anything on the bus or on the road. He had this little micro cassette. I You probably have it,
I do.
Kathy, in your
I do.
possession.
I
You
have
know,
that.
yeah,
You
and he would write like little parts here and there, riffs and stuff. But it was not like, okay, I'm going to put together a whole composition and it's going to be on Pro Tools and I'm going to play everything. No, it wasn't like that. It was very rudimentary. Uh, you have mentioned to me, Kathy, that there's sheet music that he left behind.
He wrote, yep, he was writing. My mom said, guard this with your life. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to help me. I need to have people that I feel good about and that I have good. That's why I love Rudy. I know I can trust Rudy. I feel good about anything that is involved with Rudy. And I wanted to add two more things to the
Yeah.
story of Randy when he did have Rudy join Ozzy. When that transfer happened, Randy was so happy. I don't know if you know this, Rudy. He would tell my mom because he wanted both when they needed both the drummer and Rudy, bass player. Randy tried to get both of them in there, and apparently Sharon said you can only pick one. I guess he picked Rudy. And she wouldn't let him have both, and he wanted both. But he was so happy that Rudy would be joining him on this journey with Ozzy. I can't stress that enough, Rudy. I don't know if you know how happy he really was about that.
Well,
And
he helped me so much. I mean, the reason why I got the gig is because he prepared me that morning that I was going to audition. He made sure he came down to Kevin's place, which is where I was staying at, and he taught me how to play the two songs because I didn't have time. And
yeah,
plus, you know, uh, those records they had just come out. It's not like nowadays you find 10-year-olds on online playing
Yeah.
Crazy Train.
right.
And it's like this is new. I mean, I have to learn this thing that I really have never heard before, or maybe I've heard it once on the radio. So he makes he cut it to the chase. It's okay. Here's how it goes, and I have to like learn it, retain it, and I'm forever grateful for everything that he helped me. And then once I joined the band, since he had been around Ozzy and Sharon for a while now, living with Ozzy, and they have their ways of doing things, which is a little bit different from the way that we were used to doing things. he explained things to me and said, listen, don't take it personal. This is the way it is. And it was basically that rock and roll lifestyle. I was
Yeah.
green. My only rock and roll experience was actually being in a Sunset Strip band. I did not know the actual world of being in a heavy metal band
Huh.
serving the world,
Yeah.
So I had a lot of questions, and he explained to me.
Yeah. Another
You know,
thing,
good.
can I just add one quick thought too that I think is really important? When Randy did the Blizzard album, they had to start the U.S. tour, and that's how they had to get the Diary of a Madman album out, and they did that album within, I think it's 6 weeks, if I remember Randy telling me. And he was so nervous about that, thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's not going to be good," because the perfectionist, as my brother was, always had to be perfect. He was so stressed out about that. But now, if you listen to that album, it's like a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece. It
Yes.
is. It is.
So he just kept getting better and better and better. Each
Mm.
stage, you could just see the progress.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
remembering the legacy of Randy Rhoads. And what's amazing is that this isn't a time, and there's a lot of younger people watching. One of the great things about the internet and these interviews is that people are discovering his music. But at the time, we have to remember there was no internet. There
Oh,
was you had to leave an impression, and that's something, Rudy, that you were saying. You go to a city, and people would see what Randy Rhoads has, and then the next city would hear about this guy who's coming to their town. You know the guy from Black Sabbath, but now you're going to see this incredible musician that is a word of mouth. Even when you started out on the Sunset Strip, people were saying there was only a few guys, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, that you would say there's something special over here. But you couldn't just go, I'm going to send an email and I'm going to let the whole world know. And um, and that's why it's so important for us to preserve his legacy and to fill people in. It's just been 43 years since the tragedy, and as I said, we're still talking, and we still want more. And I said, Randy's immortal. He's always going to be a young person. You're never going to see an old Randy Rhoads. The person behind you is the person we know, and that's what we have. And it's in some way, it's refreshing to know that he will always be with us. You guys who knew him personally will always share him with the rest of the world. And I know it's a responsibility at times to talk about him, but musicians who are growing up are hearing these Ozzy Osbourne songs. And Ozzy Osbourne is definitely in the spotlight more than ever as he's getting ready to sort of say goodbye to live performing, and Rudy will be part of that. Um, it's remembering Randy, who maybe Ozzy doesn't have that second chance. A lot of people didn't know what Ozzy would do after Black Sabbath, but to have this guitar hero certainly brought something new.
Jason, you certainly heard Ozzy's speech when he was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Who did he mention? How amazing was that? I mean, I just was floored when I heard that. It's just crazy. And you know what? The funny thing, if Randy, I could sit down and talk to him, yeah, no way did they still talking about me. He just wouldn't even believe it. He was a very humble person and very kind of shy in person. But man, when he got on that stage, he was a beast. So
I want to talk a little bit about more about preserving and what we could have in the future and the school. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about Kathy, your last conversation with Randy. If you could tell me a little bit about in March of '82, tell me a little bit about that.
So he was touring with Ozzy and he got a really severe tooth infection. And he came home. And, my mom was running Musonia at the time, as she did till she was 90 years old, still working down there teaching lessons. And so I had to take him to the oral surgeon, to the doctors. And he really was pretty sick. He was in a lot of pain. And uh, the last conversation I had, he got on medication, he got better. I went up there. It was March 15th. I'll never forget it. We're standing at the infamous Rhoads counter, and he was smoking. I always hated that habit that he had, but he accidentally burnt the counter with his cigarette. It was Formica, for those of you from the 60s and 70s, which burnt. And he was mortified because he knew, oh my God, Mom's going to be so pissed. I go, you know, Randy, it's okay. Let's just get some stuff and put it on top of it. She will never see it. It's still there. That was our last conversation. That was it.
Who owns that home now?
So my mom bought that house in 1952.
Mm-hmm.
We were all born and raised there. Kelly now owns it. Once my mom passed, I told Kelly, you take it. I have a home with Richard. You've never had your own home. He lives there to this day. The same freaking phone number since 1952 is still in effect.
Incredible. There's so much history. We'll talk about that history too. And then question to you, Rudy, is do you remember the last conversation you had with Randy? I know that's a little bit difficult because obviously you were there. And I don't feel like we've told, you know, the story's been told so many times of the tragedy and the crash. And do you remember the last time you talked?
Of course, because it was the only time that I've ever told Randy that I wasn't going to accompany him in something that we were going to do on the road, because we always did things together. You know, Tommy, he had his own tour going on, and Ozzy was occupied, you know, doing all the things. So it was him and me. And to us, everything was fresh and new. The other guys have been around at least for 16 years or 17 by that time. So they've seen it all, they've done it all, just like I feel now when I go on the road. I go to my room and I stay there until showtime, and that's it. But back then, everything was brand new to Randy and me. So it's about 8 o'clock in the morning. We had just been driving from Knoxville, Tennessee, down to Kissimmee, which is outside of Orlando, and we were told the night before by our tour manager that we were going to stop at the depot for the bus company who had their shop there next to their home, the Barron Estates. And it was it was a neighborhood in Central Florida that has landing strips behind the houses. So everybody has planes and so on. And they fly out of there and then they come back home and do whatever. Uh, so, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm asleep in my bunk and I hear Randy calling my name. And I open the curtain to my bunk, stick my head out, and he's standing outside the door. Of course, it's the Florida morning. We have been up north uh, for the beginning of winter. It was a winter tour, and we're finally getting some sun, March 19th in Florida. So Randy was like ready to like just go out there with his t-shirt and have feel the sun on his body. And and so he's standing outside. I see the glare, and he's standing at the door, and he says, Roots, we're gonna go up on the plane. How would you like to come and join me?" And I said, no, it's okay. I just want to get to the hotel and check in and lay by the pool. That was the plan. So I said, okay. I said, he goes something like, "Well, you're gonna miss it." I said, "That's okay." So I close the curtain and I go back to sleep. And when I wake up to a boom, I didn't know what was going on. I thought we had gotten in a crash on the freeway, because it felt like I had been asleep for a while. And to wake up like that from a deep sleep, that was shocking. And I opened the curtain and witnessed hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, the story's been told. I don't like to sensationalize it. It's been told, and a tragedy that you have to witness
Mhm.
and live through. Was he scared of flying? I've heard people say later that he wouldn't have wanted to really get on that plane.
It's shocking he did, honestly. But I
Yeah,
think what
when
he
we
was just going to say he liked taking pictures, and it was so pretty. I think he went up with his camera to take pictures and show my mom. Probably I heard show my mom how pretty it was.
Yeah. What I heard from the people that were on the ground was that Rachel was going to join, and the pilot slash bus driver told them that he was aware that Rachel had a heart condition. Rachel was our wardrobe lady and Sharon's best friend that was always traveling with us. She had been traveling since day one of the Blizzard of Us tour, and this is the Diary of a Madman tour. So we were used to seeing Rachel with us on the bus, and so Randy hears that it was just going to be like going up and going down, like a little, nothing long, going around the place. And so he says, "Oh, okay, let me grab my camera so I can take some photos." Yeah.
There's so much controversy and things. People can read about it themselves about what the pilot was on, whether or not he had this issue with an ex. There's so much out there. I just, again, I don't feel like this is the time to talk about the tragedy, but to remember, Randy, unfortunately, the tragedy will always be part of Randy Rhoads, and there's a reason that people gather, on his birthday or the anniversary of his passing to remember him and to keep him alive, which is what we're doing right now. Now, I am a collector and I'm a fan, and I love visiting famous places. And every time I'm in Burbank, I start to realize more of the Randy Rhoads history that's there. And I said, I want to make a video about Randy Rhoads' life in where his funeral was held. There's a plaque for him. He's buried in
school and the church we went to as kids.
Yeah, it's incredible that this little, Burbank has a small town feeling, at least for California, and where you guys grew up and where you live. And then when I realized your brother was trying to keep Musonia going, and he has, but students were going down as people were learning on YouTube, and things were changing. But he was offering tours for no money, just people who wanted to visit and see the room that Randy spent so much time and seeing things exactly the way they were. My guitar teacher when I was young, Nick Bocott,
I know.
a great guy, and he wrote for Guitar Magazine, and he did a piece, and I remember him telling me about meeting your mother and letting him hold these guitars with gloves and not play them.
He was there when they copied the Concorde and the Black. Yeah, he was. That's where I met him. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's such an incredible piece of history now. And I've always wondered, why does Randy Rhoads not have a museum? I've been to the Surf Ballroom where they have this museum for the day the music died. There's Graceland. There's Paisley Park. There is now more than ever, people want more, and you hold the rights, the estate to the Randy Rhoads name and legacy, and so there was a break-in at some point,
which
we were all so upset about.
We tried. We've been trying to do it, and it just seems the sad thing for Randy is it seems like it doesn't ever happen. If something bad always comes out of a very heartfelt intention to do something. And so I try to tell people, look, we do not store Randy's guitars, equipment, everything in our homes at Musonia. We have a place, it's non-disclosed. You'd have to kill me to find out where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Safe, it's secured. They are Randy's soul. I am not just giving them out so somebody can just, it has to be right. It has to feel right. It was broken into because somebody thought they were kept there. They destroyed Musonia, destroyed it. It was horrible what they did to it. And finally, Ozzy put a reward out there, and somebody panicked because it was all over the news, and most of it was put in a dumpster in an alley in North Hollywood, and we got a lot of it back, thankfully. But tell people, look, we don't keep that stuff. my mom entrusted me with this very important mission to protect his legacy, and I take that very seriously and very heartfelt, and I mean that. It's the fans. Sometimes the fans get mad, and I want to do something. Just know that.
But
That's
you have to do it where it's safe and where it's right, and you're honoring somebody. So it
yeah,
can't be tacky.
yeah.
There's places though and companies that represent past celebrities who do know how to do these things. Because what an experience it would be to walk into Musonia. Now it would need to be secured, and you'd have to put there's some work that goes into it. But boy, would people love to experience that.
No, totally get that, and I would love to make it happen somehow, but I'm not going to do it sacrificing the safety of his beloved instruments and
Yes,
everything. Yeah,
yes, no,
that's all.
100%. This is his history, and it has to be done right. But I think in time, the intent would be to have this happen if it's meant to be, and continue to honor him. We talked about your Instagram. You have an Instagram that really is dedicated to the memory of your brother, and sharing personal photos from the family archives that some people have never seen, and they add such a human side to this. I thought some of these things you talked about, some of these artifacts, that's what they are now, these instruments and things. When Randy passed, his belongings, are these returned to the family? I mean, what happens with some of these things?
Everything was returned to my mom. I was there. I went with her. One of the it was a horrible day. Richard, myself, my mom, and her music partner. When those I can't tell you the story. It's horrible. When those guitars came back without my brother, and we had to pick them up. It was horrible, horrible, and brought them home, never to be played again. And my mom told me, Kathy, just don't ever let anybody play those guitars. I want Randy to be the last one that touched them. Okay. And by the way, I want to tell you one more thing that I have tried to do displays, and take some of Randy's equipment out of the storage. I try to honor him at our wine room, which is where I am, and have an event here to honor his birthday. And I open my doors. I don't charge any money. Rudy has graciously come. Musicians have come here. Tom Morello has come here. Frankie Vanelli has come here. So many musicians have come and honored him. And I take some of his equipment out and have it here with the security guard and Richard made glass cases for it. And I have shared. If you look at the Instagram, you'll see some of my.
I've seen it. I said I want to make my plans for December 6th.
So, and I stored his car. My brother Kelly wanted to. I said, "What do you want to do with it?" He goes, "I want to drive it off a cliff." I go, "Can I have it?" And he goes, "Sure." I restored it to perfection.
Incredible,
and we had it in our wine room last December. Just to share it with everybody and just come and see. If you love my brother, come. I want to share him with you.
And you have a limited edition wine, right? Is it still available?
Yeah, it is. I don't push it. It's just something because we're in the wine business. Some little thing I did to honor him. It's not a moneymaker situation. When my mom was alive, we actually paid her, an income and put it back into the Randy Rhoads Trust. So, it wasn't something for greed or, self-service, but,
It's very obvious that this is personal to you, not financial. This is not, oh my God, how am I going to pay the bills? I bet it's put Randy's stuff out there. It's how do I do it right?
Much money if I wanted to. That's not what this is about. And I want that heard loud and clear. And I know fans want it. I hear you, and I feel bad, but it's got to be right. And my mom would have told me, yes, Kathy, yeah.
Kathy, excuse me. When Randy passed, is that when you stopped playing the guitar?
Yes.
Was it just too hard for you to do?
Yeah, and you wouldn't be so mad at me because we used to play together. I kind of had a very traverse picking style. And we would play together. As a matter of fact, Richard tells a story the first time he ever came up to the house. Randy and I were sitting in the hallway playing together. And he says, I'll never forget that image. And he'd be mad at me, I know it, but I don't know. It's just stupid, really.
Well, it's never too late, right? You can always pick it up. Rudy will come jam.
I know.
Yeah, well, I can understand, though, it being a difficult thing. Before we go, I wanted to have each of you tell me something about Randy that you would want people to know that maybe they don't. And Rudy, I want to start with you. Just something, a memory that you can share.
Yeah, from the new generation, which is really, there's always struggles in the music industry to make it. We had our own back in the 70s and then in the 80s and so on. And there's these new struggles for musicians nowadays to reach an audience. You know, um, I would they ask me for advice, and I can only share with them what I learned from Randy, which is what I practice. First of all, have musical integrity. Be devoted for your instrument. Don't do this for the money. If you want to do something for the money, become a doctor or a lawyer, one of those high paying jobs. Music, but nothing is ever going to make you as happy in your life as making music, whatever the instrument is. You know, and if you can have both, if you can make a living, to raise your family, give them everything they need, from love, from your dedication to your music and to your family and whatever faith you believe in, that is the perfect situation. And that's definitely one thing that I learned about Randy. Don't do this for the money, do it for the music, you know. And I know it's really easy to say, especially nowadays when back, where you don't have the structure of an industry like we used to have, which actually, we you were mentioning about Eddie Van Halen and Randy being the only ones in town. If Randy would have stayed in LA and was not given the freedom to create like Ozzy did, you would have never heard the Randy that is the legend that he is today. He would have just been a great guitar player, but not Randy Rhoads. Once he joined Ozzy, he didn't have to look after getting a record deal because when I was in the band, that's all we did. We wrote music just to please the record company with whatever was the mode of musical style that day. If it's funky, we did something like a one in a million. You want something like Rod Stewart, do you think I'm sexy? Because the record companies will tell you that. You say, if you can write me a song like this one, we'll talk about, we'll talk about it. And then we'll go in the studio and write something like that. By the time we came back with that song was out of the charts. So now you're following something else. And once he joined Ozzy, he was truly able to be himself, like he never had the opportunity to do that musically in Los Angeles. Now he's got a record deal. He's playing it with an artist who is signed to a label. There's a record deal.
I always say
And
Ozzy gave him the platform he needed.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's when it happened. And he took advantage of that. It's it, it, it it's a situation that I have never encountered myself. Again, to be able to play with somebody who has been given so much musical freedom that the sky's the limit as far as his creativity. Look at what he did from Blizzard. They took like what, a few weeks, they went on a little tour of the UK or something. Then they came back and went right into the studio to record Diary. I mean, that's not something that you can pick up in a couple of months to like, okay, I'm going to play classical. No, Randy had that inside of him, but it was never really shown as a musician in Los Angeles with the band Quiet Riot. This came out when he got the whole creative freedom from Ozzy
Right.
to become Randy Rhoads, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathy,
Yeah.
if you want to just share something uh, about your brother that maybe we don't know. I mean, I know a lot's been said, but or there's something that you want us to know.
I think, when we grew up, my parents were divorced, and my mom worked a lot. And so we were home a lot with babysitters. And Kelly seemed a lot older than us. And we were literally best buds. People used to think that we were twins. We were, even in school, we were in the class every other year together because of the school that we went to. And I think how close and how special that those times were, the things that we did. There wasn't social media. How lucky was I to have him in my life. But Randy was always just something special about him. He had a charisma from a young child that even in the first grade, second grade, all the girls liked him. I mean, he just had something special, almost an aura around him. I'm not, I'm his sister. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's true. And he just was so unique, and so his short time on this earth where has impacted so many. Like I said, I don't think he'd believe me if I told him. But I also want him to be remembered for the kind, humble, and wonderful person he was. He seems like a giant, but he was a really good soul, very spiritual, and I know I'll see him again one day, and I'm very looking forward to that. But just it. I don't know. I'm the lucky one that I got to grow up with Randy Rhoads and see him evolve and grow and blossom. And what a gift! And I hope I can share that with the world someday, somehow. Hopefully, this sparks something. This
Well,
interview.
I think it will. I think people watching will point out. They do a big licensing convention here in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that. These are places to go and talk to people who do this professionally. And you're doing it right now by talking. You do it every year at the events. Rudy plays these events. It's not the end.
And I'm working on 3 things right now, all Randy Rhoads related. I can't talk about them right now, but yes, don't think because you don't hear about it that I'm not trying. So anyway.
Yes. Well, I thank both of you so much for sharing Randy with us and the audience, and maybe some new people. Maybe there's a young guitar player who tuned in. Oh, I wanted to see. Yes, I wanted to see this. Hold on,
I just brought this to share. This was Randy's backstage pass with Ozzy, and he called himself Mr. Nutrition. Don't ask me why. Typical comical side of my brother. Rudy can tell you. I think he was Mr. Smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, they just gave me that name. I have no idea what it meant,
Don't ask me. Randy had a very mischievous, clever side. But
because when I joined the band, I was anything but smooth.
I'm
glad, green.
I feel fortunate that we got to see that, and I look forward to much more. And now I want to point out, Rudy. You can see Rudy in Quiet Riot. I see you all the time, Rudy. You're keeping that alive. You've told me that you believe that this is the way Randy would have liked the band, the way you handle things, the way you do business. And so that's a great thing. Quiet Riot, you can check the tour dates. You're staying busy. I don't know how you get younger, Rudy, but somehow it seems like you do. And Quiet Riot has a website, obviously, and you'll be all over the United States. And then, Kathy, we have the Instagram linked. Is there anywhere else that you recommend people can get in touch with you, or is that the best?
That's the best. I try to respond to as many people that I can. I do. They can come by. I met somebody here at my wine room 2 days ago who was here from Finland, and they wanted to meet me and hear about Randy. It's crazy. So it's just amazing. The pilgrimage from all over the world that come here right now, since Musonia is not open for the moment. But also, I just wanted to put one good word in about Rudy's book. I have to say that it is one of the best out there, and it's a must read for Randy Rhoads fans. You'll feel like,
yeah, it is.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
As well.
Thank
I
you.
thank you guys for sharing some time with me. I call my show Waste Some Time, but far from it. Really, we took a trip back in time, and we made a lot of people, you guys made a lot of people happy sharing this part of your hearts that you carry with you. So I thank you.
thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll see you all again. Make sure you like and check out